just because Senate kept a bill, and even when we were looking for it, nobody at the Senate knew where the bill was. Honorable Speaker, under your leadership, we would like this to change so that when we finish a bill here in this House, we are able to take it to Senate, we have a time frame, and that bill can come back, whether for mediation or whatsoever, but bills from National Assembly going to the Senate stay inordinately without them being passed. It is a sad story, and I hope this bicameral bill we passed here yesterday, and which will go into the Committee of the Whole, will normalize this situation so that the National Assembly does not suffer in the hands of the Senate. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and let me thank the Leader of Minority for raising that issue. Honorable Speaker, yesterday I saw, as I was driving here in the afternoon, I saw an engagement in the Senate. I was watching online where they were complaining that we are also taking inordinately long to process their bills. But Honorable Speaker, you are aware that in the House Business Committee, we did purpose to consider all bills that are coming from the Senate, and in good faith, we have done that. But they're also complaining that the House did reject two bills, one proposed by Senator Cherargei and the other one by Senator Mungatana, which the House defeated on second reading. And I listened to the argument. They were arguing that we should have allowed the bills to progress to the Committee of the Whole before we get into mediation. But I thought it's a defeatist argument because the end will be the same, that you end up with mediation. And if the House felt that substantively the bill did not meet a particular threshold, as was advised by the chair of the Environment Committee and the other committee that considered the other bill by Cherargei, then we need not go to third reading. And Honorable Speaker, you know, we in this House have restrained yourself after you came here from the other House, from in any way referring to the other House as a junior House or a lower House. But I saw them unfortunately refer to this House as a lower House, and we leave it at that. But I did engage with the Leader of Minority in the Senate when I saw that particular debate, and I raised the particular issue of the sugar bill and others that have come from this House and are pending there, including the fisheries bill that the Ministry and the Committee on Agriculture and Irrigation has been following up. And he indicated that the committee on the other side is finalizing work on the sugar bill, and by the end of next week, they should be completing that bill, and I do hope that they will be able to keep their word on that, together with processing of the other bill that I did mention to him on the fisheries management bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and therefore beg that we give them until the end of next week and see if they'll be able to complete it as they promised.
Thank you, Wandai, for raising the issue, and Majority Leader and your Deputy. What I would want Majority Leader and your team to do is first, the sugar bill, I'm told, is on the floor of the Senate this week or next week. One of the impediments in fast-tracking bills, as you know, under the Constitution, every bill from the Senate must come to this House. Not all bills from this House go to the Senate. Now, what you need to deal with, you have the Chepkonga bill on bicameral relations, and I think there's one other bill that has been brought by yourself. You must address the issue of public participation. If a bill originates from this House and has gone through extensive public participation, is it necessary for it to go through the same mill when it gets to the Senate, and vice versa? Because public participation is public participation. It's the same public. It is the same House. When you pass a bill, it is called an act of parliament. It's not an act of Senate, it's not an act of National Assembly. So you need to address the issues of public participation so that we don't have duplex processes on the same process of legislation. That will expedite the process of bills. And like I've told you, there are those bills around Article 109, 110, that can deal with that issue. So the committee that is dealing with that, and I think I've discussed this with Honorable Murugara. I see you look tired and yawning. If you can be able to address those issues, you will help the processing of bills in a very special way. Thank you. We'll go back to, who is that, Farah? On the same issue?
Yeah, just something, I mean, very, very, very good and very exquisite, and we are happy. But, Mr. Speaker, we do not have a Public Participation Act in this country. We don't have a law. So anybody can say this.
There was a law in the last parliament that was brought but rejected by the House.
Yes, yes. So is it not time you probably direct, Mr. Speaker, that we should have a law that basically defines what public participation is, so that we all know we are doing
I think the issue is safely in the hands of the majority leader.
Okay.
Once you have that, then you'll cure all this. Order, honorable members, we'll go back to order number 2. McLeod, can you take your seat? Farah and Bay, you take your seats or walk out if you are walking out. Thank you. Honorable members, you will recall that during the afternoon sitting of yesterday, Tuesday, 19th March 2024, during the second reading of the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill 2023, the leader of the minority party, the Honorable P.O. Andai, GHMP, rose on a point of order under Standing Order 47.3b. The Honorable Leader of the Minority Party sought the Speaker's ruling on the constitutionality of some specific aspects of the bill. In his submission, the Leader of the Minority Party claimed that there were constitutional issues, in fact he said grave constitutional issues, that touched on the substratum of the said bill, hence requiring determination of the Speaker before the debate on the bill could resume. Honorable members, the Leader of the Minority Party singled out the proposed amendments to the provisions relating to the National Government Coordination Act 2013, whose import is to create the office of the Chief Administrative Secretary and that of the Head of Public Service. He argued that the amendments, if passed in the manner contained in the bill, would be unconstitutional. Honorable members, the matter elicited interest from several other members, including the Honorable Karoli Omondi, the Honorable Jared Okello, the Honorable James Nyikal, the Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, the Honorable Dr. Ojambo Oundo, and the Honorable Gitonga Murugara and Owen Bayer. Honorable members, having listened to the concerns raised by the Leader of the Minority Party, as well as the arguments and counter-arguments by several other members, I have distilled the following 5 questions as requiring my determination. 1, whether a state office may be created through a national legislation. 2, whether the offices of the Chief Administrative Secretary and the Head of Public Service as proposed in the bill are public or state offices. 3, whether the establishment of the offices of the Chief Administrative Secretary and the Head of Public Service in the form proposed in the bill is unconstitutional. 4, what is the value of a report of a committee on a bill to the House during debate at second reading of the bill and at committee of the whole House? And 5, and last, whether the amendments proposed by the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs would cure any offensive provisions in the bill. Honorable members, the first issue is whether a state office may be established through national legislation. On this question, the Leader of the Minority Party opined that the 2 offices were unconstitutional to the extent that they were not contemplated under the definition of state office under Article 260 of the Constitution. Honorable members who expressed divergent views from those of the Leader of the Minority Party relied on the fact that the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, as in its report on the bill, recommended certain proposed amendments also argued that the Constitution grants latitude to the House to exercise its legislative power to create offices in the public service through national legislation. Honorable members, Article 260 of the Constitution defines a public office as an office in the national government, a county government, or the public service if the remuneration and benefits of the office are payable directly from the consolidated fund or directly out of money provided by Parliament. The same article also defines the term state office to include the various offices therein enumerated at paragraphs A to Q. Most relevant to this matter is paragraph Q, which provides that a state office could also be an office established and designated as such by national legislation. Honorable members, it is in fact instructive to note that Article 260 of the Constitution is not couched in an exhaustive manner. Paragraph Q of the said article donates power to Parliament to further legislate on the subject by providing that a state office also include an office established and designated as such by national legislation. Honorable members, the courts have also interpreted the question of whether state offices may be created by national legislation. In the case of Matindi and 3 others, versus the National Assembly of Kenya and others, 2023, 19534 Kenya Law Reports, the High Court was satisfied that a state office can be created by national legislation. The court held as follows. Members at the bar, take the nearest seat. The nearest seat. The court held as follows. Whereas His Excellency the President can establish a state office within the ranks of the public service, it requires approval by the National Assembly. Such approval may be achieved by enactment of a statute which provides for the same and further provide an appropriate framework for a cap on the High Court was satisfied that a state office may be created by statute. Honorable members, this settles the first issue on establishment of a public or state office by national legislation. Honorable members, the second issue for determination is whether the office of the Chief Administrative Secretary and the Head of Public Service as proposed in the bill are public or state offices. You will recall that the office of the Chief Administrative Secretary has been subject of myriad litigation before the High Court. Honorable members, in the case of Okoiti and another versus Public Service Commission and others, 2021 Kenya Law Reports, the court held that there were no processes laid down in legislation for establishing the office of Chief Administrative Secretary, hence the finding of unconstitutionality. The findings in this case were reaffirmed in the case of Matindi and 3 others versus the National Assembly of Kenya and others, in which the court affirmed that the office of the Chief Administrative Secretaries were state offices which could only be lawfully established and designated as state offices by national legislation. Honorable members, in summary, the court in both instances emphasized on the need for legislation in order to constitutionalize the establishment of those offices. Differently put, the court in both instances would probably have arrived at a different finding had the establishment of those offices been done by national legislation. In this context, it appears, therefore, that the bill being contested by the leader of the minority party in actual fact intends to fill the lacuna in law as identified by the courts in the aforesaid cases. Honorable members, whereas the bill as published does not expressly designate the 2 offices as either public or state offices, it follows without question that the remuneration and benefits of the offices established are payable directly out of monies to be provided by Parliament. To that extent, the offices established are public offices within the meaning of Article 260 of the Constitution. Honorable members, this disposition settles the second issue. It also settles the third issue on whether the establishment of the 2 offices in the form proposed in the bill is constitutional. Honorable members, permit me now to address the fourth issue concerning the value of a report of a committee on a bill to the House during debate at second reading of the bill and at committee of the whole House. Honorable members, you may recall that while speaking to the matter, the member for Funyula, Dr. Ojambo Undo, argued that whenever a bill is listed in the order paper for second reading, the said bill is exclusively what should be before the House for debate and not the report of the relevant committee on the bill. According to Honorable Undo, a report of a committee of this House on a bill is inconsequential to the legislative process to the extent that what is originally debated in the bill is the bill and not the report. Honorable members, I take it that the Honorable Undo advanced the said argument oblivious of the fact that committees interface the House with the public, hence actualizing the provisions of Article 118 of the Constitution on public participation. It is not possible for this whole House to engage in public participation. We do it through committees. It is for this purpose that Standing Order 127 is couched in mandatory terms as follows. 127.3. The departmental committee to which a bill is committed shall facilitate public participation on the bill through an appropriate mechanism, including A, inviting submission of memoranda, B, holding public hearings, C, consulting relevant stakeholders in a sector, and D, consulting experts on technical subjects. 3A, the departmental committee shall take into account the views and recommendations of the public under paragraph 3 in its report to the House. Honorable members, in compliance with Standing Order 127, the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs undertook public participation on the bill and tabled a report thereof. Further, the committee tabled an addendum to the report that addresses emergent issues relating to certain provisions of the bill. For greater certainty, the initial report and the addendum should be read together. Members at the bar, take the nearest seat. What is your idea of the nearest seat? Indeed, honorable members, in the 12th Parliament on 7th July 2021, when addressing the fate of individual members' bills that were pending before various committees of the House, my immediate predecessor did observe as follows, and I quote, "The importance of having committee reports on bills before commencement of second reading needs not to be overemphasized. For the information of members, committee reports on bills not only inform and enrich debate on the bill, but also, most importantly, espouse the views and recommendations of the public, which legitimizes the legislative process and cushions the House from judicial review for failing to comply with the provisions of Article 118 of the Constitution, public access and participation. From the foregoing, honorable members, and in the face of the express dictates of Standing Order 127, it's generally part of our practice that committee reports on bills are integral and imperative to the legislative process, and the contents therein cannot be wished away as suggested by the member for Funyula. Honorable members, this determination leads me to the fifth question, which is whether the amendments proposed by the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs would cure any offensive provisions in the bill. Honorable members, you will note that based on the views of the public and stakeholders, the committee has recommended a raft of amendments in this report, and I've already approved those amendments to come to the floor. I have perused the report and I'm satisfied that the committee's proposed amendments, if passed by the House, will remedy the inadequacies, if any, contained in the bill. I therefore urge the House to consider the amendments proposed by the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. Honorable members, the purpose of Standing Order 47.3b cited by the Honorable Leader of the Minority Party is to avoid an absurd situation where the House debates, votes on, and possibly passes an unconstitutional motion. The House may therefore cure any issues of unconstitutionality at Committee of the Whole, if any. Honorable members, the ruling by my predecessor on the question of unconstitutionality claims on the Finance Bill 2019 delivered on 19 September 2019 was expressly referred to by Honorable Pio and I. In my view, the question is distinguishable from the one at present. This is because the impugned clauses of the Finance Bill 2019 were procedurally defective, and they sought to limit the right to privacy without any additional provision stating the intention to limit that right and the nature and extent of the limitation as provided in the Constitution. It is therefore my view that the application of Standing Order 47(3)(b) is reserved for matters that are outrightly unconstitutional, whether procedurally or substantively. It is my considered view that the issues raised by the Honorable Pio and I do not fall within the category and may therefore be canvassed by the House, noting that the report of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee and the addendum thereof proposes amendments to the bill. Honorable members, I'm inclined to the view that the plea by the leader of the minority party for the Speaker to find specific provisions of the bill unconstitutional is premature. Doing so, well aware that the House can still cure any offensive provisions in the bill through amendments at the Committee of the Whole House is akin to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In this regard, honorable members, having settled the claim of unconstitutionality in relation to the bill, and bearing in mind that there are amendments proposed by the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs and other members, my finding is as follows. One, that the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill 2023 is properly before the House. Two, that since debate for second reading was concluded yesterday and the mover did reply, I'll hereafter proceed to put the question for second reading. Three, that the bill may thereafter proceed to the Committee of the Whole House and third reading as scheduled by the House Business Committee, and the minority leader is at liberty to advance any amendments he may wish on the bill at that stage. The House is accordingly guided. Thank you. Go to order number 8.
Order number 8, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2024, second reading. Question to be put.
Order, honorable members, take your seats. Order, Honorable Amshomba, take your seats. Taking your seat excludes running out of the chamber. Honorable members, I'll now put the question at order number 8, that the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 73 of 2023, be now read a second time. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Statutory Instruments Act.
Honorable members, we'll go back to order number 7. Today is Wednesday. We have questions to the minister. Order number? No, there isn't. Sorry, on our supplementary order paper, we have order. I've put a question at order number 9. We have also got to put the question of Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill. Go ahead and call it out.
Order number 9, the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 73 of 2023. Second reading, question to be put.
Order, honorable members. Honorable members, for the record, I was using the order paper published earlier, not the supplementary one, so the question I put earlier on was on order number 9 on the National Government Administration Laws Bill. Now I'll put the question on the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill. And I now put the question, which is that the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2024, be now read a second time. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Statutory Instruments Act.
Excellent. Before we call in the minister, can we dispose of order number 10 and 11, which are first reading? Clerk.
Order number 10, the National Cohesion and Integration Bill, National Assembly Bill number 74 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to outlaw discrimination on ethnic grounds, provide for the establishment of an institutional framework for national cohesion and peace building, to establish the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and for connected purposes. Order number 10, order number 11, the Treaty Making and Ratification Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Treaty Making and Ratification Act and for connected purposes.
Yes, Honorable Kaitani, have you called out number 11 as well? Yes, Kaitani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is on order number 13. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the Standing Order 44-2D, I wish to make a statement on the status of the consideration of the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2022, by the committee. Honorable Speaker, the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2022 is a bill sponsored by Senator Omar Mariam Sheikh, MP, and the bill seeks to provide for a national legislative framework for uniform procedures for the licensing of various activities by the county governments. Honorable Speaker, Standing Order number 127.4 requires that the chairperson of the committee to report to the House within 30 days on its consideration of a bill committed to it. The bill was read for the first time in the National Assembly on 28th of February 2024 and committed to the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. The 30 days with respect to the bill are due to lapse on the 30th of March 2024, which will be during the recess period. Honorable Speaker, I wish to report that pursuant to the Standing Order number 127.5, the committee has already conducted public participation in accordance with Article 118(1)(b) of the Constitution as read with the Standing Order 127.3 and 3A of the National Assembly. However, a number of sector institutions have not yet presented their views. Additionally, serious issues of concern were raised during the stakeholder engagements on the bill, hence requiring further deliberations. To this end, the committee resolved to have the bill undergo extensive public participation through public hearings. Honorable Speaker, I seek your indulgence. Honorable Speaker, I seek your indulgence for the House Business Committee to stand down the business from the order paper in order to allow the committee to conclude conducting public hearings and table its report. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kaitani. So that we step down order number 13 to either tomorrow or a later date. You can go to the table office and confirm your readiness. We have a sitting tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. So whichever timing you'll be ready, we'll accommodate you. Honorable members, we'll now go to questions. Welcome to the House, the Honorable CS for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions listed for you to answer this afternoon. I have been requested, the Honorable Majority Leader, by the Honorable Daoud, that I allow him to ask the third question so that he can proceed to his religious obligations, being the month of Ramadan. And I've acceded to that request. Honorable Daoud, go ahead and ask question 0542024.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to ask my question first. Honorable Speaker, I wish to ask question number 054 of 2024 to the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Could the Cabinet Secretary, 1, provide the timeline for the release of shillings 42 million committed by Sports Kenya on 13th December 2017 for the partial construction of Meru Divisional County offices, which included the Assistant County Commissioner's Municipality Office Block, Ntima Chief's Office, 3 Administration, Police Officers' Houses, Canteen, and a public toilet adjacent to Kinoru Stadium. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, is clarify whether the amount committed by Sports Kenya on behalf of the Ministry for the construction of the above-mentioned facilities can be redirected to NGCDF, Northimenti constituency, for the construction of the same. Number 3, Honorable Speaker, is consider reallocating the current space occupied by NGCDF Youth Center to the NGCDF Northimenti or to the Ministry of Interior so as to enable the public to make use of the space with a separate gate and boundary wall to distinguish the area from Kinoru Stadium. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Daoud, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity, and to thank the House for according us the opportunity to come and interact with the honorable members on issues of relevance. And Honorable Speaker, without wasting any time, let me go straight to question number 3, question number 054 of 2024. In response to that question, let me inform the Honorable House that it is true that in 2017, Sports Kenya did make a commitment to assist in the partial construction of the Meru Divisional County offices planned to be situated near the Kinoru Stadium. However, we wish to inform the Honorable Member that this commitment was made without a confirmation of funding, as really is the requirement. That is what the law says, that before you commit to any project, there should be availability of resources for the project. But in this case, there was no confirmation. And up to date, Sports Kenya has not received any financing from Treasury. And as will be amplified while responding to other questions that are part of this session. Honorable Speaker, when the Kenya Kwanza administration came into office, we inherited a huge pileup of stalled projects pretty much all over the country. And one way of dealing with that was for us to put in place a master plan to better manage that whole space of infrastructure for sports and the creatives. And I want to assure the Honourable Member and the Honourable House that moving forward, we have sealed that loophole of committing to do projects without the requisite provision of financing. And so that's the position. There's that commitment on record, but there's just no financing to match that commitment. In response to the second segment of that question, is that, again, there is no allocation in the budget. Sports Kenya does not have this money. And in fact, the ministry is exceedingly stretched currently with commitments to host the African Nations Championship, also known as CHAN, in September this year, and the Africa Cup of Nations in 2027. And so it's just so very difficult. Of course, if these resources were to be availed, if Treasury were to avail these resources as has been requested by Sports Kenya, then this project could be concluded. In response to the last, the third segment of the question, is that this is a matter that we would leave to the local leadership to build consensus on how to use this space. If it is with regard to the Youth Empowerment Center, the ministry is already starting to roll out a program to transform all youth empowerment centers into innovation hubs. And so the Honourable Member may want to reflect a bit more whether this would be the best use of this space or whether we should proceed with the plans to utilize the youth empowerment centers for an innovation center. But if it is indeed a priority that the Honourable Member considers this particular use of this space to be the priority, then that can be, consensus can be built locally, and then the ministry would certainly consider that. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Daud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm not satisfied with the answer the CS has given, because I talked to him earlier as well. Mr. Speaker, this issue I brought even in the last Parliament, and it is as if the Ministry of Sports just wants to avoid this issue, that there was no commitment. But there was a written commitment by Sports Kenya, and Sports Kenya are the ones who were doing Kinoru Stadium. So when they were doing Kinoru Stadium, they demolished a few offices, and they promised in the process of making the stadium, they will give me, because Kinoru Police Post is a gazetted police post. It's not just out of somewhere. It's been there in existence for long. And there was a meeting in July 2021 by the then Governor Kiraito Moronge and the Minister, then Ambassador Amina, together with the PS, where they agreed that the county government would provide land and the ministry would provide the funds. And Mr. Speaker, I'm not asking for funds if they cannot give it to CDF. I'm willing for them to construct for us the infrastructure which they promised. And we already have land from Kinoru Primary School, because the land which was being offered by the county government was where there was a sewage plant of the Ministry of Livestock. So that is not conducive. But we already have land. So I want the minister, while he is doing the stadium, because the stadium has still not been handed over, be part of the works of the Kinoru Stadium, because they have still not handed over the stadium, and works are still going on. Although the stadium in some places is being worn out, the running track is in a pathetic state at the moment, but that is not my concern for now. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the youth center, I want to convert it into an ICT center. I do not have an issue with it. But when they were making the stadium, they specifically wanted to demolish the youth center, which I opposed. And I said, we cannot put government money, we cannot put it the way they wanted to do it. So what I've asked is, I'm not asking for a relocation of the youth center. I've asked for the land where the youth center is standing to be removed from the stadium land and be given to either the county commissioner, and I put a gate through CDF, and I do the youth center, the ICT hub. But talking to the other people, I do not think it will help me. The minister should be able to agree that it is not part of the stadium, so that then I can follow up the other process of getting that land in the name of the interior. So, Mr. Speaker, the minister, I do not think he can escape the commitment. The commitment was made, and we need the offices of the ACC, the chiefs, and the police post, and the accommodation units for the police. Mr. Speaker, he can put that money in the stadium because it's part of the stadium. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, you've heard the discourse from the member.
Honorable Speaker, I have not made any attempt whatsoever to run away from the commitment. In fact, to my credit, I did confirm that indeed there is a commitment. There's a commitment. I just made a clarification that when this commitment was made in 2017, that is about 7 years now, the commitment was made without matching resource allocation. That's the position. We do acknowledge that this is an important project. In fact, Honorable Speaker, let me confirm to the House that it's the policy of the ministry that any space where there is a sports facility of this scale, of the scale of Kinoru Stadium, it should be serviced by a police post. It should have the capacity to house security within the ecosystem of the stadium. And so, yes, there is a commitment. And what I can assure the honorable member is that effort will be made to get the resources. There is also the challenge of the land. The county government had allocated some land for this purpose. And so there is also need for the honorable member to get into some consensus with the county government in terms of the actual location of this project. And as soon as the resources become available, government is a going concern, even though this is a commitment by a previous administration. This administration inherits those commitments, and so there are commitments that should be carried forward. With regard to the Youth Empowerment Center, again, let me make it clear that this is a new administration, or this is a different administration with different priorities. This administration would certainly not support the initial or the earlier attempt to pull down this center. The approach we have taken for this kind of infrastructure is integration, composite development, where you can have a stadium, you can have facilities for the creatives, where young people can do music, they can do film, they can do ICT, they can do innovation, and therefore there is absolutely nothing wrong to have a stadium and to have recording studios and to have an innovation center, and we can have that whole ecosystem integrated. If I can hear the honorable member, he's saying the land on which this particular space stands should be excised and sort of delineated from the land of the stadium. And that is something that should be possible. The land actually belongs to the county government. And I believe if between ourselves as a ministry and the honorable member and the county government, that is a process which the ministry would certainly support. We wouldn't be averse to that, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. We'll leave it there, Daoud. We'll go to question 054 of 2024. Sorry. The first question, question 231 of 2023, the Honorable Duncan Mavenge, member for Nyeri Town.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42A 6B, to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports to explain the scope of the Ministry's policy stopping the construction of stadia across the country, and whether such policy meant suspension of completion of stadia whose construction had started. Number two, provide the status of the construction, including the expected date of completion of the Rulingo Stadium in Nyeri County, Nyeri Town constituency, the cost of the project, and the amount of money already spent thereof. Number three, state the reasons for the delay in the completion of the Rulingo Stadium, considering its upgrade was launched 6 years ago, and state the loss suffered by the local community as a result of the delay. And number four, outline measures that the government shall take into account so that in future, stadia are completed as scheduled and the funds allocated thereof are utilized prudently. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Madanga. Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's true that Rulingo Stadium in Nyeri is one of those projects that have taken inordinately long, unacceptably long to be completed. In fact, this stadium is among about 13 facilities scattered across the country, from Rulingo to Kamarin in Elgeyo Marakwet County, to Wote in Makueni, and many other places, projects which have gobbled approximately 10 billion Kenya shillings in actual expenditure, but which have not been completed to put to public use. Honorable Speaker, the situation of Rulingo and the other stadia that I mentioned in different parts of the country own institutional limitations, both as a ministry and our agencies like Sports Kenya, Kenya Academy of Sports. And I want to admit here that we do have limitations. Reason why we have made effort to be supported, to recruit extra staff to enhance our capacity. And one of the things I'll keep on reminding the House is support for the ministry and our institutions to be able to build our capacities in terms of hiring more technical officers. Now, with regard to this particular issue, to address this challenge, Honorable Speaker, we made a policy decision to freeze construction of these projects, to do a thorough assessment, and also to plan. And I'm very proud to report to this House that for the first time in the 60-year history of this country, we were able to develop a master plan on infrastructure for sports and the creatives. And I have actually provided a copy. Honorable Speaker, I have provided as my Annex A to this response I have annexed a copy of this master plan. This master plan now answers questions as to what do we need to do, where do we need to do it, how do we need to do it, when do we need to do it, and at what cost. It lays a very clear plan. It also provides some metrics to determine why you choose one site over the other. For instance, let me give an example, Honorable Speaker. The other day, when deciding where to build the Talanta Stadium, which is going to be the center for hosting AFCON in 2027, we considered so many different venues. We considered Mombasa, we considered Nakuru, and other places. And because of the criteria we have set in this master plan, we were able to pick a site that ticks the necessary boxes on cost, on accessibility, and viability of the project. And therefore, Ruringu Stadium and many of these other stadia were victims of poor planning and the poor execution of implementation of these projects. And I can confirm to the honorable member that the policy to stop construction of new stadia was merely to allow the ministry to conduct a thorough assessment to determine the state of infrastructure across the country, which we have since concluded, and now we have this master plan. That also allowed us time to call in the Auditor General. And I'm pleased again to notify this House that I personally delivered a request to the Auditor General to come in to look at some of these troubled spaces to help us determine what the problem was. And again, the Auditor General has completed that process and has delivered a report to this House, which is being considered by this House, and we are also looking at it from our end. But work is now going on in various spaces which we had stopped because we have finished that assessment, we have finished the audit, we have determined how we should move forward. So work is already going on in some of these places. Now, with regard to the second limb of the question, to provide the status of Ruringu Stadium, between 2017, when this project was initiated, this project was initiated at a contract sum of 365 million. 735.30 cents. That is the contract sum that was awarded in 2017, some seven years ago. It was supposed to have a 4,000-seater pavilion, main pavilion, a FIFA standard football field, a borehole and associated water storage facilities, electrical and mechanical works, 8-lane track done to actually international standard, because we envisage that this should be a stadium that can host some of the events that Kenya hosts. It was supposed to have a VIP lift. That scope was priced at that 365 million shillings. To date, the records indicate that 307 million has already been paid to this contractor, leaving a sum of 58,190,000 to completion. 58,190,740.13 to completion. The status is that this project is still in that first phase, because it was planned that this project would be phased. The first phase would be done with those elements that I have indicated, and then the project would be further developed upon conclusion of that. But we are still at that first phase. It commenced on January 5th, 2017, and the initial target was to complete it by June 30th. This is an initial target which, even in our master plan, we had envisaged that we should be able to complete this project by June 2024. That is the current status. Now, the reasons for the delay in completion of the Ruringu Stadium considering the period of time that it has taken. And Honorable Speaker, I have admitted to this House the reason why we came to office and stopped any further work in this space and took time to develop a master plan, the first master plan in the history of this country. It will go down in the history of this country that the Kenya Kwanza administration developed the first ever master plan for sports and creatives infrastructure for this country. We were doing that to correct the challenges that have brought us where we are. Challenges of Ruringu, challenges of Wote, challenges of Kamarin, challenges of many other projects which were started and just never saw the light of day in terms of completion. And as I have admitted, there are challenges of resources, not matching commitment with the resources. So you have a project going on, and then you run into the headwinds of having resources to complete the project. Challenges with the tendering, where you can see that a contractor is being entrusted with a project they have no capacity to undertake. Obviously, you engage a contractor and you can see this one cannot do this project. And so, because of all those factors, Ruringu has suffered the fate of delays. We have taken time, Honorable Speaker, to consider what to do with this project. We have looked at the option of terminating this contract. And Honorable Speaker, I have visited this stadium myself. We have considered the option, do we terminate? We have made a costing of termination, and it has been determined that terminating this contract and retendering it at the current market value of services and goods would cost the taxpayer an extra 235 million shillings, as based on the current market rates. We are also considering, should we terminate and hand this project to the National Youth Service so that we do an intra-government arrangement to hand it to the NYS to complete this project. Those are the options we are looking at, Honorable Speaker, but there is a firm commitment to conclude this historic stadium because it certainly has taken way too long to complete. Let me conclude. The final limb of that question is to outline measures the government shall take into account so that in future, stadia are completed as scheduled and funds allocated are utilized prudently. That is what I have already said like 5 times already, that now we have a master plan and we have instituted an arrangement where a project cannot take off without matching that project with availability of funds. And we have entered a new era also. It's a new administration, a new style of doing things, a new policy frame, you can say a new sheriff in town with a new style of administration. We have also made sure that before we entrust any contractor with a project of this kind, we do proper assessment so that we determine the capacity of a contractor to deliver. Because Ruringu has suffered because of the capacity of the contractor. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Ruku. No, hold Ruku. Madenge, you have a supplementary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, I want to confirm that the minister did visit Ruringu on the 29th of August 2023. However, Honorable Speaker, the status of Ruringu today is such that everything except the small part of the pavilion and the borehole, everything about Ruringu will have to be redone. The artificial turf is already peeling off. It cannot be used for athletics. The glass in the football pitch is completely overgrown with the Kikuyu grass. And the fact of the matter is that that contractor that they claim, that the ministry claims, has no capacity, is still their favored contractor. The contractor is still in possession of the site. So this 235 million will still have to be spent if Ruringo is to be put to the expected standard. The ministry has a peculiar costly relationship with this contractor. In fact, for all the reasons that they blame the contractor, they see the ministry for the last 1.5 years has enjoyed the same relationship that the contractor had with the previous dispensation. Sports Kenya, which was in charge of overseeing the project, is still intact. There have been no changes. How can we keep doing the same way, the things the same way, and expect a different result? Honorable Speaker, on terms of prudence, the ministry went ahead and has retained.
Ask questions, Madenge.
The private consultant who is retained for Ruringo. When is he going to be removed? Because the Ministry of Public Works has the capacity to supervise this stadium. And Honorable Speaker, I want the minister to look at the people of the Central Kenya region in the face today on TV and tell them, because Ruringo is the regional stadium, Nyeri is the regional headquarters. When is this stadium going to be completed? Alternatively, let us be told that this so-called master plan has actually decided to disenfranchise the people of the Mount Kenya, the sporting fraternity in the Mount Kenya region. Why has the stadium for the region not been given preference as the other regions have had their stadiums completed?
Minister, Madenge is unhappy with you maintaining the private consultant and the failed contractor. That is the question is raising.
Honorable Speaker, I can confirm to this House that there are no